Jessie Carter had a head for business. Her husband, Vern, a passion for flight. Together, Vern and Jessie Carter created an impact on Utah aviation that left a far-reaching legacy. Verinus Joseph Carter was born in 1904 in Benjamin, Utah. From the age of 13, he dreamed of becoming a pilot and earned money working on the family farm to let him fly with the early barnstormers. He took flying lessons in California at age 16, but returned to Utah to finish high school. After graduation, Vern once again took to the California skies, making his first solo flight on May 20, 1923. Working as a stunt pilot in Los Angeles, Vern was hired to fly as a German aviator in a World War I movie called Wings. The film won Best Picture of 1927 during the first ever presentation of the Academy Awards. During his time in California, Vern had the opportunity to attend an impromptu course on celestial navigation. The lessons he learned proved invaluable, not only for Vern, but also for a fellow student in his class, Charles Lindbergh. Vern returned to Utah in June 1927 and purchased his first airplane, a Hisso Standard open cockpit biplane. He made his living barnstorming until returning to Los Angeles in 1928 as an instructor. Flying between California, Colorado, New Mexico, and Utah, Vern then landed a position teaching at Utah Pacific Airways in Ogden, Utah. He also met and began courting the young woman who would become his wife and lifelong business partner, Jessie Ellen Welsh. They married in Brigham City on February 21, 1929. Vern and Jessie worked as a team from the very beginning of their marriage. In the 1930s and throughout the Great Depression, Vern worked as a flight instructor with Thompson Flying Services, and then as a captain with National Parks Airways. In 1936, he purchased a Piper Cub and became the world's first Piper aircraft dealer. He also purchased 80 acres of land in Salt Lake County, borrowed a dump truck, and leveled the ground for a landing strip at what would become the Utah Central Airport. Jessie served as office manager and bookkeeper.
Mom really did support Dad in his sort of wild dreams before they became realities. The airport became the reality to his flying skills, and I can't imagine either one of them being able to fulfill any of that without each other.
During the early years, Vern flew as a mail carrier and also developed a great understanding of aircraft maintenance. What fueled him most, however, was his passion for teaching. He and Jessie wanted to help new pilots succeed, and during World War II, they did it for Uncle Sam.
His passion, his love was teaching. He taught these pilots so if you got into a situation, you would know how to get out of it.
During the war, Vern and Jessie's business, Carter Air Service, expanded. They built an apartment in the corner of the hangar at Utah Central so their children, by then numbering 6, could be with them on site. Over time, they also established the Carter Sky Ranch Airport in Draper, Utah. By 1953, the family had grown to 9 children, and Vern and Jessie built a new house and hangar right at the airport.
I always thought of both of them as having a certain level of courage, him in terms of dreaming and daring to do things. But they're starting an airport in the middle of the Depression and having the courage to see it through. Mom just had a very straightforward manner that dealt with things as they were and in reality.
Throughout the late 1940s and early 50s, Vern achieved recognition as a private pilot examiner and aircraft maintenance inspector. This was also the time when Jessie entered the flying end of the business. She was certified as a pilot in the mid-1950s and joined the International 99s, the Ladies Pilots Association founded by Amelia Earhart. Jessie served as president of the Utah chapter of the 99s in 1963 and loved to mentor young female pilots. After selling Carter Sky Ranch in 1960, Vern and Jessie moved the family away from the airport to nearby Sandy, Utah, and purchased undeveloped property for what would become the Lehigh Airport. Always seeking new opportunities, Vern flew to California with his youngest son Ray in 1962 to meet with Hughes Aircraft about becoming a regional sales representative for a new helicopter.
It was in February of 1962, and Dad came to the school and said, "Come on, we're going to LA." So we got to the Salt Lake International. It was a Boeing 707. An hour and 20 minutes later, we were in Los Angeles. And the first officer looked over and he saw Dad, and he said, "Vern." The first officer was getting out of his seat, and he came over to shake hands. And at that point, the captain gets up out of his chair and comes back, and he shakes hands, and they introduce themselves to him, reintroduce. And then the flight engineer turns, and he recognizes Dad, and so he's up and shaking hands. To an 11-year-old boy, that's wow.
Whether piloting a Curtiss Jenny or a jet aircraft, Vern Carter is said to have flown just about every aviation job in the book. He passed away on August 18, 1966, the result of injuries sustained during a windstorm at the Lehigh Airport 4 months prior. Jessie continued to fly after Vern's death and gave years of dedicated service to her family, church, and community. Just 3 days before her 84th birthday, Jessie passed away. She was laid to rest at Vern's side in Sandy, Utah. As a team, Vern and Jessie Carter paved the way for numerous others to fly, as military pilots, airline captains, and in general aviation. As former U.S. Senator Jake Garn said, Vern was an institution in and of himself. There was no one in the state of Utah aviation that did not know him. And of course, everyone who knew Vern also knew Jessie.